Welcome to our latest episode of the Lebanese Physicians podcast. And today our title of our episode is Kite Without a String, Music Identity and Journey of John Lebanon. In this episode of the Lebanese Physicians, we sit down with John Lebanon and we discuss his musical project and how he decided to transform his name or his musical name to John Lebanon. So we will discuss with him his growing up in Beirut, his discovering of music during Lebanon's power outages, and then we'll go through studying at Brown University and his recently released albums. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Khalil, Dr. Diab. Pleasure.
And for people who don't know, Roy actually, in practice, he's a primary care physician in Massachusetts at Beth Israel Deaconess, and he does his music as a passion of his on the side. So I'm going to ask you, Roy, you grew up in Beirut during the 1990s. How did those early experiences shape your relationship with music? And just to tell you, I think you're much younger than me.
Not that much stuff, but yeah. We overlapped, I'm sure, growing up, the 90s were there. And it was peak. I think we got lucky to have kind of the upside of what Lebanon struggles through currently. Uniquely, I think the nice thing about growing up during this era is that, one, I think something I got aware about later on is class divides. So it's pretty apparent in third world countries like Lebanon. You can tell the has or has nots. It's a bit more apparent. I realized this later on because I got much older. But it's something it was like we say in Arabic, bahbuha, growing up in the 90s at that area. It was peaking until the castle collapsed. And I think history repeats itself. But from a music perspective, I didn't grow up in a musical family or anything like that. So it was great. My mom used to play some cassettes. My dad was a dentist. My mom was a French teacher who was listening to some French music in the car. A big kind of influence was my cousin played like classical guitar. And when you're a kid, it was like 12, 13, looked up to him. It was kind of cool. And tying it back to power cuts, that kind of thing. One memory I was thinking about yesterday was reflecting on this I remember one time, I think we were like, maybe I was 10, he was 6 years older. It was kind of a significant gap, but figure to come to. Playing basketball outside at my grandma's. I don't know if you know the Benton area. It's kind of Rabi area. You have a view of Salim. I remember seeing flares and everybody was like freaking out when went to Mahwa, like the basement basically. There was no power, of course, but we had a classical guitar and started playing. So it was a nice moment of freeing the kids because they weren't scared or anything. I think it was the adults were like, oh my God, and so they're bombing again because you can hear, you can see because the mountain was facing Salim. It's happened more than once, by the way. I remember it's very vividly because it was every few years, they'd like blast the power plant. But then, I think this is when I think I saw music as a refuge. Maybe later on, growing up, like tying it back to Lebanon, get to the music. It was really early on. It's something I thought it was very beautiful that I was attracted to it, especially people playing. You probably had a very similar experience too, the way you like interviewing people. Sure, you probably started somewhere younger, you realize.
Yeah, good. Goes back to your roots. So basically what you're saying is like you went down to the basement and then that's when you started taking up guitar, right? Really that?
Not really. No, I just had this memory. It wasn't, when I actually started picking up guitar, I was really interested, and my mom could tell this. So she got me the Jetsy guitar on my birthday. He was either 13 or 14. Then I remember doing some lesson with Michel Shikhani. He was like this Bikfaya guy, conservatoire guitar. But I was not a great student, to be honest. I didn't like the study, so I never actually learned the notes. I wish I did. So I was a bit stubborn. So after maybe 3-4 classes, I was like, I'm done. And within just like 6 weeks, I started recording. I had a cassette. I recorded the first kind of song. I wrote some lyrics. It was the only one for me. I was infatuated to this turn at school. Wrote that, recorded out cassette. It was fun, and I loved the passion. Since then, I think this is when I just it became the same way. If you watch Dexter,
Yeah,
the series, the same how he has this need. I felt like I had this need. An idea would come up, and I'm like, oh. Sometimes I develop it. I sit on the guitar, lyrics come out, just random stuff, and then if it's good enough or really interested in it, I develop it and spend time with it. And over the years, even early on, actually, in school, I had progressed a bit to learning some softwares, that kind of stuff. Happened quickly. Like by 16, I already recorded a full 6-song EP with the drummer friend of mine who was at the neighborhood. We got a band together, and actually it was called Heartbeat. You might be familiar with Heartbeat the Docs in Lebanon. They were doing a fundraiser. They had a band.
Exactly. Yes.
If you remember this, so imagine my disappointment. This kid, super excited, new band, and I actually drew. I don't know if you can tell. I like to bait, not good, but it's just fun. So I
Sure,
painted
they're
actually.
nice things. I can see them, yeah, in the background.
Yeah, one of them is the Lord of the Rings map. But anyway, so I painted the whole logo. I had the HB and I put it like I had a little area where I had my computer and speakers. I had the DIY interface to kind of plug in. And within a few months, I learned that this big band blowing up that's in Lebanon doing offers this fundraiser. They're really good playing, and the people with the same name. I'm like, ah, fuck. So we had to change the name later to Night Shift. But then over time, I took a big break after undergrad. When I went to med school, this is when I didn't do much music. I was just focused on studies. I did play. This is when I played this shows live and so on. And we can talk about it more if you're going to ask me the name and so on. But this is that year when it came out until, yeah, now we're just.
So, yeah, so basically your first song that you wrote was inspired by Girl.
Yes, yes.
All right.
Not unusual, I think. I think a lot of
Yeah,
musicians, yeah.
exactly. Like it's always, yeah, which is a good thing. And so what's the story? Because you started the band in Lebanon, so it was Heartbeat, then it was Night Shift. And when did you decide on naming yourself John Lebanon? And why did you do that?
Yes, so this is just to give you a little bit, I think it's relevant. So I was doing undergrad in Lebanon. I was at AUB first, then I thought I wanted to go to the UMETS, but I had just, so that was my idea, so I transferred there. One of the Arabic course I took at AUB, I think my grade was not good, but I did pass it, but it didn't transfer for the pre-med. So I had to stay an extra summer, I think, to redo the freaking Arabic. So I was like, huh. So luckily I was looking through one of my dad's friends who worked at the Polish embassy, mentioned that they had this program where they would sponsor students going for med school. So I looked into some med schools there and I landed in Krakow. It's relevant because this is where, when I went to med school there, it was a great program. It was we had to do electives in the US. We had even the neurology team from Rochester, like the resident fellows come in, neurology at Poland. I did most of the clinical electives. It was a really solid year because I knew since undergrad, I wanted to go to the United States for residence. And it was clear. I knew I wanted to do medicine. Music was never like career kind of choice. It was like this passion on the side that I really love, but I wanted to do Hmonk, by the way. That was my primary goal. I was really geared towards that side. But in any case, once I was in Krakow, med school there, I started just duo, me and a Norwegian friend called Life. And we started this small heads little gig. We just played a gig. One of them play covers, basically. It was maybe a couple original songs, actually. I think I used to play Monte Cristo, Just Some Rest. And I think one of the gals I was seeing at the time made the joke. Someone said I look like John Lennon. Said, oh, he's more like John Lebanon. Look at his chest hair. Lebanese dude. I was a bit heavier too. So I had the classical, more like Kinshlu.
Yeah.
And it was really funny and it stuck. But I didn't think, oh, this is going to be a bad name, whatever. It wasn't until later when I started my residency at Brown in Rhode Island. Within a few months, for one of my first residence paycheck, I bought a guitar. I was like, okay, it's time. I need to go back into this. I had missed it. And I just played, like I remember at the bar, Providence is Divine. I'm like, this is a nice song. So I took it for kind of a studio. I met Alex Krebik, who I still work with. This like kind of genius Russian guy who has a basement with a lot of equipment. He taught me a lot too. Now I do most of what I do in terms of production, I do at home. But when I was thinking about a name, I'm like, oh, John Lebanon. I couldn't think of a better one. I thought it was witty, funny, works. I tried to change it because especially after a few months, I was like, maybe it's not the best name, but then I'd ask friends and everything I'd come up with would be somewhat lamer. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to stick to it.
Yeah, that's a nice name. And yeah, you look like John Lennon. I think you have some. So how did you were in Lebanon, you started playing guitar and stuff like that. How did being at Brown University, like how did that influence your music and your creativity when you were there?
Oh, for sure. I think one obvious thing, I think a big kind of in French fardeau or like a bucket of stress, if you want, was lifted once I matched and I started my residency. I'm sure a lot of your listeners are familiar with the process. Med school, you're trying to match. And at the time I had done a year of research activity. I was really geared towards, like I mentioned, like Hmonk. And this was what I was focused on. So I didn't have much room in my mind to explore, to be more expressive creatively. I was doing scrub work, for research, just data entry, show up. So And once I felt I had the space. I'm like, you're in it? Great. It's good. My first elective was hemong, and that's a different story. But because I wanted to start with that to see it, because this is what I want to do. And I really didn't like it. So when I did my outpatient hemong elective, I thought, oh my God, I had a misunderstanding of the specialty. So like, I thought I could just do a fellowship in hematology and oncology, then have my lab, be the king of research on cutting edge disease I like that's going to be like specifically to blood, like liquid hematology. Instead of solid. Because I had this great mentor I learned from in geomatics who was like this mad genius. He had his lab. His name was Dr. Maciejewski. He was the guru of like plastic anemia, PNH. And to get to this level, I realized you cannot do both. To get to this level, you have to commit, just do lots of research and to be able to have your own lab, you have to suck it up and go through outpatient team for a bit. You have to do some community. You're not going to just jumpstart, become a head of a lab. And once you're at that level too, I don't think you'd have so much room. So once I realized this, I think the first month, I'm like, this is not for me. There's no way I could do community hematology and biology even for a bit. I'm like, okay, maybe I should just do some music. I needed it. And I had the space now that I'm already in residency, getting a salary. And this is why it gave me the space more than anything. More than that, just Rhode Island itself, living in the city. It's a very eclectic, creative city. There's risky there. It's colorful. The environment helps for sure. And the university itself, although it's heavy academics, but at the same time, it is artsy. It's a nice campus. It has one of the songs I wrote, actually, Blue Magic Bear, was directly inspired by a statue they had on campus. It's a giant blue bear with a lamp. And I remember looking at that statue. I'm like, this guy is depressed. Why is this giant bear? I came up with Blue Magic Bear, talking about him, how he had to drink it from, just obviously stories. That's what I like to do. But yeah, it was definitely a great catalyst to open up. And over time, so throughout my residency, so once I realized I had this time, this space, I found Alex, then I met Matt. And he's a big part of the band too. Two Matts, right? One of them, or one of them does bass. Young, basically, they were training in sound engineering with Alex too. So and pretty well, first Matt is great, Hatch, great piano player, like classically trained. He has his own band too and so on. So it's definitely meeting these people too helped a lot. Although I definitely always hung out around musicians in Lebanon, most of my friends, music, and this is where the scene I was part of. But it was also great to have that in Rhode Island when I first started, and now in Boston. So this is where it comes. It's the people more than, for sure, the city, the freedom, just having a paycheck, not stressing about the next gig, the next job, as you're trying to. But yeah, I hope this answers it a bit.
Right, answer that. Yeah, I think it's a very good way of saying it, because also like music is nice. It's a passion of yours, but at the same time, probably it's not gonna on its own. Probably it's not gonna give you a good paycheck. So it's or at least at the beginning, right? So it's basically a good thing that you have another job that you can do and at the same time enjoy your hobby, which is in music. And what happened to Alex, Matt, and Matt? Are they still in Rhode Island?
No, actually, Alex is still in Rhode Island. So
Okay.
I usually, not always, some songs I kind of circle with him. So we get a job on a call. I just visit him and we do mixing together.
Nice.
So I can explain a bit like how the process works. But basically, and Matt actually lives actually pretty close to in Massachusetts. He's not playing in the live kind of setup we have, but I always in touch. They did sound for our last gig. It's pretty good at that too, him and Adam. The other Matt Delusha is a bassist, and now we write songs together. I'm going to be up with him tomorrow. We just hang out, play some music, grill maybe, film some.
Nice. So yeah, so he's So basically, is that the reason why you decided to just be like, you're like, all right, I'm not gonna be like a big lab scientist? And was music one of the reasons you decided just to pursue a career in primary care, or was it something else that led to this?
I think definitely the only time I think music came in, not in conflict, but influence, like I knew I always wanted to medicine, obviously. I always loved the sciences. I was really into, especially medicine itself. My only ever growing up, like I thought I'm either going to be a zoologist or a doctor. I don't think I ever thought of anything else. An architect for a bit earlier on, but that was, I got over that by the time I was applying for schools, undergrad and so on. And once I realized that hemonc for me was not going to be fulfilling enough after the first few months, I think I didn't settle on primary care at the time. I was confused. I didn't know what I was going to do, to be honest with you. But once I knew that, okay, this is not for you, man, I realized, okay, I need room for music. And I realized it's pretty important It's a big passion of mine. I never thought I would make a living out of it because, like I said, it's a need also, rather than something I'm trying to build and be a bigger ad or get income from. This is one of those things I really enjoy doing, and I want to have the space for it. And this is where I think it came in. Yeah, I'm not going to sacrifice something I really enjoy doing that brings me so much joy just for a bump in my career that is going to be stressful. And it's not that much joyful to think about at the end of the day. But for others, they have a different track. I realize some people have such a strong passion for the academics that this is where their place is and it's great for them. Must have a passion, and everything, but otherwise you wouldn't be doing it for 5 years too. Or something if you don't kind of pivot.
Yeah, for me, it's like I enjoy interviewing people, meeting people. I've met a lot of people along the way. So it's a good thing. And like you, I do it as a passion of mine. I'm not like doing it to make money out of it, like that. If you make money out of it, it's fine, but it's more, I do it more for the fun of it. Otherwise, I wouldn't meet people like you know what I mean? So basically, how does it typical? I know you have the new album that you released, Kite Without a String, and you've released a lot of other songs before that, but recently you've been releasing more songs. How does a typical John Lebanon song begin? Like lyrics, melody, or emotions?
It's a good question. I think it varies, but easy example, say I'd be gardening outside and then the tune comes to mind. It's just a melody. So if it's good enough, I keep humming it as I continue my whatever thing I'm doing. If it's really good, I just jump in, sit on the guitar, and start strumming. If I do, sometimes lyrics come off that don't make sense, or it's not like a visible theme or an idea. And then if it's good, still good, then I might play the next day. If it's still good, then I grab my phone and do the audio notes. And 1 out of 10 of those, it's interesting enough that I'm like, okay, maybe I should sit down, put some structure on the computer. That's when I use my DAW, which is I use Cubase. Some people use Pro Tools. It's just a software they connect to. I'm probably familiar with this. It's the podcasting, the interface. Like I have the mic plugged in. I have VST board here. I can put in some chords. I can plug in my guitar, either app. It's just a structure. And I start writing. So I played the basic chords and I develop it. The theme sometimes is obvious, sometimes it's more visible. I noticed the more exciting the song is at the beginning, the faster kind of the bass is. So, for example, Hurricane Eyes, it's like the first song in the album, Kite Without a String. That was very quick. I think we were just jamming. It's sometimes how it happens. We're jamming with Jihad and Matt, and we're having a few beers. And I'm like, oh God, it just came right away. Da, 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 I'm not asking for trouble. Da, 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 daddy lets you out. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, this is so good. So I obsessed into it and developed it. I wrote the lyrics, try to make sense of the words that came out first. It wasn't a theme. So slowly I'm trying to convey a message to, and I'm trying to always stick with empowering people, bringing them more, not always, but a lot of times I notice it's not something that's conscious. I notice the theme is always believe in yourself, be the best version of yourself. And then once I have it on the computer, that's when also 1 out of the 10 ones, I have the energy and the interest to follow through. Because this is the funnest part, to be honest. This is my favorite part. The process is when you have an idea and you develop it, and it's like very young and it gets nurtured and it goes into a direction sometimes unexpected, especially when I come up with a really good line. Sometimes be on the beach, go to the beach regularly here in Massachusetts, especially on the weekends when the weather is nice. A lot of times I'd be sitting watching the sky and then I have a nice line come to my mind that would fit the song I'm working on. And I would write it down. I'd write it in my notes. I have a hashtag lyrics in notes, which I throw in sentences. Sometimes they make sense, sometimes they don't. It's a bit of a collage. And then once that stage is getting to a nice, well-rounded end, the less fun part can start if it's still interesting, which becomes the production. So I'm like, okay, this is a good song. I like the lyrics. This is good direction. And now I want to make it look nice. So I start over, figuring out the tempo, and I start putting all the tracks. That can be a bit annoying because sometimes I'm repeating the same kind of guitar line to make sure it's good, that the editing, it can be less fun, but the song has to be really good enough and I have to believe in it and be excited about it enough to go through that kind of grueling part that could sometimes takes me a year because it's slow. And after that stage, that's when, because we always try to I like to get creative with some things. If I want to add a sample, if I want to add a color, I have cushions. I have not this mic, like a condenser mic I use here. It's pretty easy. Sometimes I go somewhere else. Sometimes I have the full drum kit to wake it up. And the last stage is the mixing and mastering, which I do either with patch that is friendly. Some songs I did on my own don't come out as good because I don't have as many plugins. So once you have the audio files, later you put in plugins like the compressor, you get effects, and then you bring the sound together. You have the nice mix. And then the fun part too, I like is the graphic. I always like to match up. So I'm always in touch with the Wemi Hneid. She's a very good friend of mine from Lebanon. She's an illustrationist. So she does about the Cine too and stuff. She's very talented. And usually I have an idea how I want the image to look, artwork. And I either sketch it, send it to her, or we can actually jump on a call tomorrow or Sunday for a next EP coming out end of summer. It's going to be different. Yeah, it's called Overlord. It's like a skeleton kind of. It's very strange. It's inspired by manga. But it's the part of it that I enjoy until you pick whether I want to release it or not. Some songs I finish and you don't even get to release. But most of them do. That it's just a matter of, I'm part of A1, which is, it's DistroKid, CD Baby is one of those distributors, which you apply for it. Then if you get accepted, you don't have to pay for it. So I don't have to pay for it, which is kind of a distribution. So I just submit the songs you want to release and they spread it. That's it. And then there's a live part, which is separate. I don't think you asked about that. I don't want to blabber for too long, but this is like biggest enjoyment, I think, is the production phase. And then the live is a bit its own beast because the live brings these songs to life and it's very different usually. Practicing live performances, that's another, realm.
Yeah, so basically what you're telling me is you're the one who's coming up with this, with the lyrics, right? You're the one who's coming up with the music, but you have people who play with you, right? Or
for sure, not all songs. So, for example, Afternoon Monsoon was, I think, the first one that it's a song we basically a few months ago that it was more of a collab between me and Shabat. It was actually, he started the riff on it. He was playing the riff on the guitar. And then I just had the lyrics and I just started singing. And this is what we came up with. And they recorded it as a team, me and him attached. So Missouri 2 was his. But the other ones, I think, usually traditionally is how it's now. It's heading more into direction that's more collaborative and more, because this is great. I love it more. And now, especially, it's recent. We have that's maybe a year. But now, for example, we have Silent Vaz, this trombone. He's an excellent musician, extremely talented. He's graduated from Berkeley School of Music. So now the next song I make, I'm going to have him in mind. I'm going to be like, oh, there's a trombone now. So why don't it's going to influence me unconsciously too, because now that we have group that's going to be representing these songs live. But originally, a lot of these songs are much older. It was just me and a guitar. So I didn't have that in mind. And it does evolve. So Self-Made World, for example, the guitar was Jihad, basically. I had the architecture a bit, but he did the soloing. I was like, it's so beautiful. Then I edited, I cut it, that live it can be different too, just a bit separate. That makes sense.
But it's interesting. It looks like you do a lot of your own editing, right? Whether you're doing it yourself or doing it with other people, you're still doing most of the editing yourself.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not the funnest part, but it is enjoyable. That's why I do it so slowly, because it's going for like an hour, 2 hours, and the product is very rewarding. And sometimes it's a waste of time. Sometimes I spend 3 hours and it's actually not nice. So I just go back to the old version. And
are you using AI to edit?
Not really. I know about it. I never, honestly, it scares me a bit.
Yeah.
Because I do enjoy the process. I kind of don't want to use it ever.
Yeah. I was like you. Recently, I broke down and I started using it to edit my videos just because it's so much easier and saving me so much time. But yeah. Who are the artists who have had the most influence on you and your songs?
That's a good one. I would say not the Beatles, contrary to what you would expect. Although I like the Beatles, but I don't think that,
Yeah.
I'd say Dire Straits for sure, because I just remember playing GTA San Andreas on the computer. I was like, 15, and always having Dire Straits in the background, Walk of Life, and I think they're very there. I like Toto. They're a good band. In terms of influence, I think more recently, so I'm getting inspired. I just discovered Bruce Springsteen, for example. I knew he existed, but I never got into the music until the past few months. I discovered, Atlantic City. It's one of her songs. I really enjoyed that Nebraska. I think I watched the movie that triggered my interest more. I know my wife's parents, they're big fans. They've been to his concerts and so on. But I think, it's a good inspiration for Springsteen. I think I really like the message, his struggles too. His performance is excellent. And I strive to that. I think I'm looking up to this kind of dense kind of anthem-wise music, the way he sings too. And I think I try to replicate it a bit, although it was before I even knew about Bruce Springsteen, discovered his music. But Hurricane Eyes, I think, has this kind of jump up in scales and driven kind of rock energy, if that makes sense.
Right, right. And actually, interesting that I just attended one of his concerts a couple of weeks ago. He was here in DC, and it was a great concert. The guy, despite all, he still looks great. He played for 3 hours straight and kept everybody engaged. It was such a great concert, actually. Yeah. So, what are some of the themes that keep showing up in your songwriting?
That's a good one. We just explored that a bit. Definitely empowerment, I'd say. Believing in oneself, that's a big one. There's love as a generalized theme for sure. A lot of the songs are inspired by infatuation. That's for sure. And humor. Humor. I'd like to think a lot of them have some humor, although it's not very obvious sometimes, but I'm trying to be funny sometimes.
Yeah, I was laughing. Some of them, I couldn't stop laughing. I don't know.
Oh, really?
Stop kidding. Do you write differently now than you did 10 years ago?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I was so bad because I never thought it was important. I never cared because whatever comes to mind, what just somewhere. Now, if you feel bad, just some will make you feel that bad, so bad. But yeah, so I just grew to appreciate it. I think it went hand in hand with my English getting better. I was French educated. I was at John Lebanon, just living in the US. Over time, I just got better English. And that was a big factor. And also listening to more, paying attention to lyrics. I never used to pay attention to lyrics. My wife was a great influence. She loves Taylor Swift, Noah Kahan. So those are very lyric-driven artists. And she would tell me, oh, I love this line. I'm like, I'm not even paying attention to what they're saying. Just focused on the music. Now I start to a bit more, still not that much. But still my ear, I think, is more geared towards enjoying better instrumentals than singing in general. I never liked to sing. It's not something I like to do that much. It came out of necessity. But now that I appreciate the lyrics more and I try to convey a message, I think I'm really enjoying it and I'm immersing myself more in it. And I realized the value of it. And it's another way to express yourself that I think is also closer and warmer to a listener, to an audience. Because it's words, they get to see it, they get visualize it way better than a guitar riff. You know, it's a story. So I'm appreciating it much more.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's more like when you don't play this, you don't have to interpret it as much. But sometimes also with the music itself or the acoustics, you can still, it can be open interpretation. So there's positives and negatives, I think, to both of them. How has Lebanon and your Lebanese identity influenced your music?
Oh, probably a lot. One of the things actually I didn't mention, but it's one of the reasons too I decided to stick to John Lebanon was not so much as an act of defiance. I think you'd understand this because you're Lebanese as well. Sometimes I found myself, especially in school with all Americans, Canadians, they're moving to the US. I'm not going to say you're judged, but basically a lot of times I'd feel that people have prejudice over people coming from the Middle East in general, especially religious prejudice too. If someone that's from a different religion, they could. If someone looks different. And I feel I've been very blessed always in the sense that people wouldn't judge me as much because I'm light-skinned, handsome, I'm fit. So I didn't get that much prejudice, but I know it's there. And a lot of my friends would go through that. So part of me wanted to be in their face. I'm Lebanese. This is why the name is John Lebanon. And I don't care. And it's okay. It's a good thing. I don't know if it makes sense to you, but I think part of me wanted not in the sense that, oh, I want to represent Lebanon and give this impression that Lebanese people are also, then I want to take on the mantle to be the representative of the country. No, it was more like if someone thinks all Lebanese people are a certain way or wants to misjudge them, I'm going to try to prove them wrong. So I'm going to own it. And you know what? Yeah, we're John Lebanon. We're a band from Lebanon. We're Lebanese and we're fucking awesome. That was kind of fun. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense. I mean, I think it reflects I see it in my daughters because we lived for a number of years in Lebanon too, but I think it also gives you an identity because my daughters, for example, at school, they like to always say, we have two identities. We're like American and we're also Lebanese. So I think it gives you also an identity that you can be proud of too.
Yeah. Yeah. The way it influenced me for sure. It's changed so much over time, but a very specific example is like Sur, the song. This was after, and I think this was very traumatic for yourself. That was the reason why Beast was August Nuke, the Lebanon, whatever that was. That was so grotesque. I think it really affected me, although I wasn't living there, but I know my sister lived through it. She's traumatized by it. Luckily, though, I wrote the riff. I did actually never fortunately perished. But so it was pretty impactful. And it definitely moved something in me. And I think for 3 days, I was staring at a piece of paper, trying to come up with words to express it. This is when I felt the closest, I think, to Lebanon. One of the times, actually, was before that too, during the 2019
Evolution.
financial collapse. Yes, yes. I think I also got pretty excited and did things out there. So we're going to, I did it. But yeah. So I've always had this kind of facility for sure. It's my homeland. My parents live there. Although I love the US, I don't think I want to go back to Lebanon to live there. I love my life here now, but I wanted to succeed. Yeah, beautiful, amazing, welcoming place, of course. Especially that I have direct ties, lots of friends, family live there, and I love to go there. I love to visit regularly.
Just like us. So you've played live music both in Lebanon and the US. Do audiences in Lebanon or the US react differently or connect differently with your music?
It's a good question. But I wish I don't play that much. You haven't played that many shows, so I'm looking forward to play more. And honestly, was not looking for giant audiences or anything like this. I'm just happy with having just above awkward. You know what I mean? Because it's just so much fun for me. But one thing I noticed is that in the audience, especially when we played in Catnap, it was a lot of Lebanese people at the show, which was kind of interesting. And I remember just specifically when we played Next Door, they were like singing with us, which was kind of cool. So compared to Lebanon is very special, I think, because when we play in Lebanon, I'm going to have automatically way more close friends, family members attending. So that makes it definitely very special. The times I've played in Lebanon, it was spectacular in the sense of the connection you get with the audience. So that's one big difference. But I think they're both equally enthusiastic and fun and just there for the music, having a good time.
So now we're going to get to your latest album, which is Kite Without a String. So can you tell us about the album and why did you choose that title?
Oh, it's a good one. So sorry, I just had to collect my ideas because it wasn't until a few months ago I settled on which songs were in the album. So it was from the start. But I think couple of years ago, a lot of stuff happening. I think I was sitting on the piano. I have a nice big connection. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. Can you see me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So I was saying, so I was sitting on the piano and then I started playing the melody. And then words started to come out and I really loved the direction I was going for. Like that song, I really felt the progression that's going to be spectacular. Although it's very basic, but it just came on its own. And I thought, okay, this is pretty good. I want to develop this. I think I spent a few days like obsessing about it, about really perfecting the lyrics and having a message. And I think I changed them like at least 20 times because I don't want to be too obvious, not too critical, not try to find that fine line between. I think I was a bit also motivated from things happening in the world. That was a big thing. A lot of things are happening towards terrible times. Not that terrible. Now it's not that great. Been on a spiral, relatively speaking, there was a shock like, oh my God, it's 2025. This shit is happening. What's going on? We just had COVID not long ago. So I was kind of in shock and I really wanted to convey a strong message while trying that fine line. And I was so proud of it. Every time I'd have a good sentence, like one of them, you belong to no one. When I came up with that sentence, I'm like, so good. You belong to no one. I kept repeating it to myself and I connected really a lot with the lyrics. So I was like, okay, this is good. And I was like, I want to make an album out of this song. But this is how it started. I had already had Hurricane Odds that had come out like a year earlier. I already had the tune, but I haven't recorded it. Because it was still in that kind of, if you want to split them into A is it an assembly line, A, B, C. It was still in the A pool. No, nothing production wise, just saved it on the computer. One day I might progress it because it's good. I liked it enough to jump directly within a week. See, I was already making sure the guitars were aligned, trying to come up with a keyboard, figuring out the drums. So I finished it really quickly within a few months. It was done. It's been sitting in my computer for a year. But then I wanted to not just release the single, I wanted to have it part of an album. And I kind of regret one thing, not having it at the end of the album. I just thought about it a couple of days ago. I'm like, it would have made so much sense because it's a great closing song. Live, we close with this. It's calm. It has a strong message. It is what it is. And I think I was also listening on Spotify. If you listen to the algorithm is smart enough to end with Kite Without a String. It automatically knows it's supposed to be the last song of the album. But in any case, so once I had this kind of message, this theme, which is basically, I would maybe put it in three categories. There's that a definite weirdness, descent into darkness and anarchy happening in the world, defiance, pulling yourself and not despairing and fighting back, and beauty and appreciating beauty and the existence, having faith too, that's part of it. But these kind of big things, I wanted to have it as an art. So that's why I chose the songs I chose in the album. Like very well, I decided it's an older song, but I wanted to do it back more like a 12 string oriented because it's a call to action. It's not a mixed bag, but it was definitely inspired by Bernie Sanders, for example. So it has that kind of side to it. So it felt like that same thing with Petit Pierre, which is more of a gardening song and circling back to the whole band. It's just really, but it made so much sense to show how you can really enjoy every moment and have that's one of my passions too. Not as big as music, of course, but gardening. I really love gardening. So it really ties in. And and then Mexur, I thought made so much sense as well to add this kind of theme. And the title, the way it came, actually, I think it was one of those things that just got brain farts, if that makes sense. As you're singing, playing Kite Without and string, I'm like, oh, this actually sounds good. I was like surprised it came on its own. I'm like, oh, it makes sense. It would be a good title. I like the visual, imagining it. I like the idea. It's so free. Kite Without string means it just goes wherever it wants, wherever the go with the flow type. So it really fit. I'm like, that's a great title. The other option was Life is a Banquet. So I was considering Life is a Banquet also as a title, but I think I just settled with Kite Without string. But it was a bit more.
It's an interesting name. And actually, when you think about it, you cannot fly a kite without a string. So it's like, yeah, but it looks like this album that you wrote was like written from songs across Boston, Beirut, and through your basically life, right? So it's a reflection of what you've lived through and what's been happening around the world during these different periods of time that you've been through.
Yeah, I didn't get the question.
No,
More of a statement.
it's more of a statement. Yeah. Yeah, but you can tell me yes or no. Okay? So which song in this album feels the most personal to you?
Overall, definitely, I have to say Kite. But the most exciting one, I think, was Hurricane Eyes. Mexur had the most, I think, emotions. Writing it, produced everything about it was very emotional. I think the most by far. I remember drinking a lot during Mexur too.
Okay. And what are the issues that are facing independent musicians the most these days? If you're going to be an independent musician and you want to publish your music, what are some of the things that people go through to be able to publish their music?
Now it's a good question. In the grand scheme of things, I think just volume. There's just so much independent music every day
Sure.
coming out. It's really hard for someone to break through. I know from friends like here in Boston, fire race, professional musicians, right? And the biggest challenge is consistency, I think, because there's so much noise. Now it takes to release a lot, be very active. They need to use a lot of social media. They need to go out there. Live performances, I think, are going to become much more important to it in the future, especially with AI music and easy playlists. I think people appreciate more good live performance. And I think that's an asset for any kind of someone who's trying to do it professionally. I think the main focus should be live, even more so than material, if that makes sense. Because if they're really good live, they at least get secure gigs. And even if they have only 1-2 songs, that might push them to do more as they grow an audience. And it has to come organically, like from the community where they are based. It's live. We're not going to fly Texas to go watch John Lebanon in Boston.
But yeah, because what you're saying is looks like different than what I would have thought. I would have thought social media and maybe like streaming apps spread music more than live. But what you're saying is in music, maybe like live performances are more important than.
Depends. Yeah, it depends what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
For professional musicians, for people who wants to make it as a career, they gotta survive with live shows more than on live streaming. Most of the times, unless they blow up and you get viral, that's kind of a different level. But might be right, actually. I just thought recently my wife wanted to watch the Waka Han. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's one of those folk artists that grew up in England. And what helped him the most was take a solo. So he played live for 10 years, didn't get anywhere. It wasn't until he grew up on TikTok and then played the 2 fully booked shows at Fenway. which is unheard of. So I think you do have a point, but I think for connection, for at least the way I think about it, connecting with an audience, I think it's much more real to that. And I think it's very important. But yeah, if someone is looking, definitely they need to be very interested in life. You cannot do that. But you have to be good at life to have good content online too. Monetize itself. Like you cannot suck and expect to blow up online.
Right. So yeah, you have to be connect with your audiences first, and that's what you're saying.
Anyways, it's something that I just recently started doing, and I think it was very instrumental.
How do you define being successful in your music?
Honestly, it's personal to me because it's a passion. So I consider myself, so I did actually give myself goals, because at the beginning, I think I was not too hard on myself, but I had, maybe greater expectations. And say I'd be disappointed if I had 10 monthly listeners on Spotify. You're like, oh, it's so sad. We're so hard for the song. But I kind of got over that quick. And now I'm at a point where I'm happy with having 10 listeners. That's success to me if the product is nice. But generally speaking, just having one person enjoy and connect with your music is enough for most artists, honestly, within reason. Just slightly above all. But you don't want to be playing a place with 3 people, mom, dad, and my sister. So it's nice to have 10 people, but to me, that's enough for success. Obviously, if someone's doing it professionally in their each or here, they're going to have different conditions. I think it's about being happy while doing something you love and stuff times.
And as we're closing to ending, I was going to ask you, who is your team right now? Who is the team who plays with you?
So it's me, Kite plays the piano, it's really great. Khalil Diab plays the electric guitar. Khalid Razit plays the trombone. Of course, Matt Denusha was from the start. He's the bassist. And Stefanos Athenios, he's a Greek freak, plays the drums, also weirdly trained.
Nice. And these are the people you play the live music with that sometimes record your album with.
Yeah. Sorry, it's getting hot in here.
Yeah. What's your favorite album of all time?
Oh, favorite album of all time. Brave New World, Iron Maiden.
Nice. That's a good one, actually. Who's your favorite Lebanese artist?
I have to say Mashrour Leila.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Mashrour Leila, yeah.
Good one. A favorite concert you've ever attended?
Supertramp, Beirut, whatever, the Bielfik.
Okay. And a song you wish you had written and did not write?
That's a tough one. I would say Sultans of Swigs.
Okay.
Sultans of Swigs.
Right. The Sultans of Swing. Boston or Beirut? All right. I'm not going to ask you why, but yeah. Acoustic guitar or electric guitar?
Electric guitar.
Nice.
Any day of the week.
One word that describes your music.
Stories. Word powering.
Nice. What's next for John Lebanon?
So next, I think continuing live shows, even 2 or 3 times a year. It doesn't have to be that regular, but it'd be nice to have, when I have a show at the fall. Definitely going to finish one Arabic song I'm excited about. I've been working on the lyrics. It's taking, because I was never really good at Arabic. So it takes so much longer. And trying to find a fine balance between sounding Lebanese, but at the same time having some class. Not say very unusual words. And an EP, probably before the end of the year. It's inspired by a backup.
Okay.
Overlord, so it's a different, more rock. So that's fun. One thing I wanted to bring up, by the way, because you asked about the Tangier, because I think you'd like this, because punk crit, right?
I am.
You had asked about where medicine impacted music. I wanted to mention when I was doing ICU at the Miriam. So during that time, this is when I started working on a song called BGY3, which is inspired by that kind of time with my colleague, was our cardiologist, which is great, singer. At the time, I remember coming in on service, and we had this, 30 kids with, a woman with lupus who was already intubated, they're about to, not on pressors, but she was on broad spectrum antibiotics. I think was involved. I'm coming in, this kind of new, I was intern, basically. And trying to present, she was assigned to me. I'm going interviewing the family. complex case. She's getting sicker and sicker. She was, I think, the next day they were going to start dialysis, not the full on, what it's called. They do short term. She was almost going to become ECMO too, by the way. It was pretty bad. So I talked to the family and they mentioned how they had pigeons at home. So I'm like, oh, this intern, cryptococcus. So I ordered the test. I think it was antibody or antigen. The next day, the ICU attending starts yelling, who the fuck ordered cryptococcus? I'm like, this is intern. I got scolded, basically. Now we're going to do, you got to chase it. You're going to go by the end. Then, of course, they had to do, it escalated the point they had to do a spinal tap to see if it's a CSF. And turns out she did have cryptococcus.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I know. The idea was like salivating. You can imagine the infectious disease team, how much they're going to love this. And like, oh, finally, a really freaking good case. All of the fellows from infection were coming in. And like, you can tell they're like punctures, really excited about the case. And she would, they put on Ampho-B and the whole thing. And she recovered. She got better. Went on to survive. I'd like to think she's alive and well now. And then I was so frustrated the whole time because I was freaking right. Basically, I made a good call. I was too sure about myself. And then at the end of the rotation, the attending that told me, yeah, that was a good job. But during that time, I was so stressed that I had to write the song. I don't know. This is when really medicine got music kind of really, for medicine broke into music in a very direct way.
It's okay. Yeah, so it's basically based on your experiences. So that's why it's like, yeah. So when people listen to you 20 years from now, what do you hope they remember about the artist behind the music?
Maybe this is going to sound selfish, but I really don't care if that makes sense. Maybe I used to, at some point, you kind of think, oh, yeah, it's nice you have songs for this day forever, biggest, whatever. I think it's really very the moment when it comes to that. But if I were to say, I'd like to say it help if it's helpful in any way, especially I think I'm leaning more into, the empowerment team, just making someone feel better about their day and stronger, more powerful, more resilient, more able to speak up or demand what they're worth, what they're owed, what they're looking for.
And exactly. And for everyone, thank you, John Lebanon, for being on the podcast and for sharing your music and your album with us. And for people to listen to your latest album, it's Kite Without a String. And it is actually some great songs. I listened to it before the podcast. And you can find it on Apple Music, Spotify, and all the music apps. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you so much, Dave. That was really a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Enjoy the weekend.
Thanks, you too.